The Borg were the most terrifying villains ever created in Star Trek because they were the algorithm personified. Now be warned, I hold unorthodox opinions about Star Trek The Next Generation. Second season's the best. The first season is pretty great. Those are just to get your blood going. But today I want to talk about the complete ruination of the Borg as the best villain in Star Trek. When the Borg were introduced in the second season episode Q Who, they were the most terrifying villain ever created in Star Trek. Why? Because they couldn't be reasoned with. They couldn't be talked to. They were not listening to anything you had to say. They were just the algorithm clicking through their set of commands. It's why the original Terminator was so terrifying. As Reese said, there is no reasoning with it. It does not stop. This is the same quality that the Borg had. They differed from, say, Nomad or Norman in the original series because Captain Kirk could reason with them. There is no reasoning with the Borg. They are just algorithm. They are just following their programming, and they have no way to deviate from that. And I find this very interesting because we're dealing with some of this in our world today. If I ask ChatGPT or another one of the generative AI platforms who wrote a certain poem, and it gives me the wrong answer, I cannot then ask it, why did you give me the wrong answer? It doesn't know. It's not reasoning. It doesn't know the poem. It doesn't know the author. It doesn't know anything about it. It's just giving me a probability of the next letter that comes after the next. There is no reasoning to it. And that's why the Borg was so terrifying. There was no reasoning with the Borg. You can't say, hey, we'll give you the mineral rights of Kalnak 5. It doesn't understand that question. They want to assimilate an entire civilization, or as much of a civilization as they can, because, say, humans have a better heart valve than their humanoid form. So they're going to take that. Or the Klingons have a better spleen. Or the Federation has better deflector shield technology. So they're going to take that. And the Klingons have better disruptor technology. So they're going to take that. And there's nothing you can do to deviate them from that algorithm. Now, as the Borg evolved throughout the series and the franchise, some changes were introduced. The first big one, of course, came at the end of the third season when Picard was taken by the Borg and made Locutus. This, of course, started the breakdown of the Borg. However, Best of Both Worlds, Part 1 and Part 2 were so awesome, we didn't care. And I still don't really care. Those stories are great, and I love those episodes. But that little change of the Borg assimilating an individual started us on a path to where the Borg would be completely ruined. So if we jump ahead to the movie First Contact, the first thing we get is assimilation of individuals. And now I get it. I get why the creatives behind the movie would introduce this change, because it gives you action scenes. And it does make the Borg kind of scary, but it makes them less terrifying. But the complete ruination came with the introduction of the Borg Queen, because now you have an individual that you can talk to and reason with. And maybe they're evil, and maybe they're unreasonable in the sense that people can be unreasonable sometimes. But it ruins the whole idea of the Borg being terrifying. It makes them a run-of-the-mill villain that are still scary, and I don't want to meet them, but they're not terrifying. Again, I understand why you would want to introduce a Borg Queen, because it gives you scenes where you can have your characters talk to somebody in a movie. And so why I understand some of those changes, because it would be very difficult as the Borg were introduced. They don't assimilate individuals. They don't really talk to people. They wait until they can assimilate a large portion of a civilization or the whole thing. I understand that that doesn't give you a lot to work with as a writer or a director who wants some kind of cool action scenes. But if they had been kept as originally meant, and the creatives were forced to work within those constraints, I think the Borg would have remained one of the most terrifying villains ever. But now, with the introduction of the Borg Queen, they have just been cheapened and become an ordinary villain. And then, of course, later Star Trek just overuses the Borg because they were so popular. Borg were ruined by assimilating individuals, and the Borg Queen, they were made less terrifying because now you have an individual you can reason with instead of algorithm, which cannot be reasoned with, which will not stop, and continues only until it is destroyed or turned off. That's my take on the ruination of the Borg. What's yours?